Long story short.
Long story short.
To make a long story short.
So long story short. Long story short.
So to make a long story even longer.
So anyways, long story short.
Well, I was trying to get into the nursing program, and pretty much all around the country. And at first I was looking at this place in Australia, and something fell through, and I was researching online, and St. Kitts popped up nursing program. So I was like, well, I'm going to send an application. 2 days later, they said, you're accepted. And I said, okay, I'll be leaving in 3 weeks. And so I got my passport together, packed my bags, shipped off from the States to St. Kitts.
I was down there while my wife was in veterinary school, and he was in nursing school. We happened to live on the same street in an area called Mattingly, which was in walking distance from both the nursing and veterinary school. And I was down there working a working musician, and I played in a band called Hans and the Hillbillies. We were a rock, country, kind of funk band, and pretty popular on the island. But we also hosted an open mic at a place called Ziggy's Beach Bar and Grill, right along the ocean side there.
I remember seeing this band that everybody was talking about, and it was called Hans and the Hillbillies. And so I was like, okay, I'll go check these guys out tonight. And Tom was the drummer, and it was like a country cover band.
Dan would come in with Jack, our original bassist, but he was playing ukulele at the time. So those guys would come in, and they would do a couple of songs. They would ask me to play drums with them.
I heard this voice behind me, and it was Tom, and he goes, hey, you mind if I play the drums on this one? And I was like, yeah, go ahead, man. And so from that point on, it was like, game on.
I would think about 6 months later, I remember approaching Dan. I said, look, man, I would like to record some of your originals, because I would sit in with them and back them up on them, and I really like what I heard, and really I knew there was something special there.
He's like, hey, you any more originals or anything you want to record? And I was like, yeah, I got some stuff. And so he's like, well, maybe we could set something up, and you come over to my house, and I could record you. And I was like, okay, that sounds good.
I had a real small recording system with me that I brought down to St. Kitts. Really only a few microphones. It was an interface, nothing fancy. And he came over. He and Jack came over, and we laid down probably like 8 songs, intending just to be demos. But it was right out of the gate. There was something more than demo quality there.
We laid down probably like, it must have been 5 or 6 songs, like within pretty much that day. And he's like, he just kept it rolling.
I'll never forget. I realized there's something significant here. There's so much potential. That's when what I considered I went full on with Leeward Fate.
I was blown away from what he did, what we did that day. I mean, it was just like something clicked. And from then on, here we are.
Next thing you know, I'm booking gigs every week, and we're playing out, and we end up recording a whole album down there. It's like we gotta go public with this, we gotta have something to call ourselves.
Oh, man, we went through so many different names, and nothing was really like striking a nerve with us for a little while. And basically, we had a whole sheet, and we just kept going down, up and down. We were like, a lot of no's and a lot of no's. And like this band, there's a lot of no's for like one yes.
I don't know, I just had this notebook. I would kind of jot stuff down, and I really didn't think too much of it. And I remember I had this one, it was called, it was like Fate something and Leeward something, and then I put like those 2 words together, Leeward Fate, because we met by fate in the Leeward Islands.
Leeward Fate was probably right in the middle, I think. And I told Jack, I was like, man, there's something about this name, and it's a nautical term. It's, you know, kind of positional where we were at the time.
I wake up in the morning, and next thing I know, Jack, our bassist, he bought the domain name and everything, and we had web URLs that said Leeward Fate, and like it wasn't even a group decision. It was like we're Leeward Fate now. That's what it was. And so he bought the domain name, and then I made a Facebook page, and then next thing you know, there's a Twitter, Reverb Nation. So there wasn't really much discussion. It was just like, that's cool, and we went with it.
Basically, we just kept playing and playing and writing and recording and writing and recording, just being really creative and trying to get as much stuff out as in the time that we had to do it with each other.
I think that whole environment down there was a really good, nurturing environment to with the selected songs that we were working on, and it helped inspire them, and just the overall feel and approach to going about making that record was completely different. It was a lot of fun to make. It was very, very natural, a lot of fun to make, and we essentially made it on our own.
Living on the island, especially, that had a lot to do with my songwriting, and the experiences on the island, the people I met, the relationships that were formed and some lost, definitely had a huge impact on what I would write about. And the culture itself was definitely, it definitely embedded something in me to write a little bit more freely and loosely, with kind of their vibe, I guess, so to speak.
So yeah, we continued on. We had all the way up to the end of 2009. It was December of 2009. We hosted the album release event show down the island. It was great. It was a big deal for us. It was an accomplishment. It was well received.
Lost in this hell of fire, I didn't know where I stood. Caught up in this mess, chopping life into kindlewood. Found myself climbing down this tree and caught up in the roots. Capsized by my demise, afraid to know the truth. Well, I found my way back, found my way home, found my way back, and I'll find my way back home. Draw myself another name. With Jenny I closed the book. Stepped outside, smiled wide for the cameras the pictures took. 24 frames, the secondhand moves, taking my time away. Closing my eyes and dying inside, paying for the pain to stay. Well, I find my way back, find my way home, find my way back, I'll find my way back home.
For me to come out to this island, and for Tom to come out to that island, and Jack at the time, and to meet up and form this thing, it's like, what? It's crazy.
It's a very, very tense time on the island. You had two political parties that did not see eye to eye, and as a foreigner living on a country, we lived on there for about 3 years, so you start to feel like you're part of the community, but you're not necessarily affected by what they have to live with day to day on their political system. You're there temporarily, but these people, like for instance, like tax on things was like 40% or more, and in a country where a lot of food is shipped in, it's expensive, and of course there's not a lot of jobs, and so there was this big political rift going on, and there was some violence. I'll never forget looking out the window and seeing a truck drive by with guys in fatigues and AK-47s just patrolling. I think they called them, they were the Defense Force, St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, and they would drive up and down the streets patrolling. I mean, there was just, it's kind of scary, you never knew when something was going to go haywire, and how would you get out?
I left the island first. There was a volcano that was getting ready to erupt, and so I magically made it off the island in one piece, and then Tom was following behind, and he actually had to get delayed because of the sky was just covered in, you know, ash and silt or soot or whatever, and I mean he wasn't able to leave as soon as I did, that's for sure.
Yeah, after everyone, Dan and Jack, when their studies were up, they departed St. Kitts, and Daniel was assigned to Indiana, and Jack to Kentucky. They had a couple extra things to do study-wise there, and then my wife and I, we were on the island for another 4 months together.
Yeah, we stayed in contact all the time. I mean, it's crazy.
And then we left, you know, I think it was April of 2010, so like about 4 months after everybody else had left, and we went to Raleigh, North Carolina, so she could finish up her veterinary studies, which is where we are now. So during that like 4-month like limbo period before we left the island, I was like, okay, the album is done. We just had a really good CD release show. Maybe we can tour.
We were like, we gotta do a tour, you know. And I've never done a tour before, and I don't think Jack had ever done a tour either. And so Tom was kind of like spearheading this whole operation, which he does.
Yeah man, this is Masoud Sadiqi, reggae artist from Sugar City, St. Kitts, and you really should go and check out the Leeward Fate Summer Tour 2010 in the US. You do it over and over and over again because you just can't get enough. Just like Pringles, once you pop you can't stop. Leeward Fate.
So I remember the tour was started out as about let's do a week to 2 weeks during the summer of that year. And while I was in St. Kitts, I had all this time I could just start booking. I've never like booked a tour before.
I'm the Memphis Kiddas out of St. Kitts. Come and see the Leeward Fate on tour in the USA. North American tour. Don't miss it. Let me love you. Leeward Fate. I wanna love you night and day. Let me love you.
So we had, you know, a certain amount of songs we knew and we played, and Tom was just lining up these gigs in between, you know, one of my breaks in school, which wasn't very long. It was like a couple of weeks.
So I learned how to do that, and so I really wanted to like keep this thing going. You know, it was just too special to let go. I knew we had to make this happen, and you know, right from the get-go, we've lived in different states once we left St. Kitts. So that's been like that for about 4 years now. It's just we've continued to make it happen.
So lined up this tour, and I mean, some places we slept was crazy. Some of the venues we played at were pretty crazy too. I mean, we were cutting our teeth definitely, and seeing if we could do this. It was a big test of our faith for this band.
I drove like 17 hours straight from Raleigh, North Carolina to like Gary, Indiana, and then Jack drove up from Kentucky. We all met there. We had a few days of rehearsing in Chicago nearby. And the guy who we rented the tour van from, and his name was Fabian. This is a great guy, man. This Dutch guy who was just great.
We actually had a rehearsal studio down in Chicago. This guy named Fabian. And it's down in his little basement, and so we went down there. We rehearsed for a day, and then he let us use his van to tour in. So we, you know, paid for his van to tour.
Yeah, I did the tour there. Started in Chicago, worked our way down to Georgia, and back up, you know, through Nashville, Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, Michigan. Just a huge triangle, and it was great. I mean, it was just wonderful.
Yeah, we just kind of went around and around, and it was a lot of driving, and a lot of kind of like, I don't know how this is going to work, and I mean, there was some lovers' quarrels, you know, and but we made it work, and you know, in retrospect, it was very important for us to do that.
It's clear as it's ever been when you call me honey. No need to hesitate, you have to borrow money. Walk 1,000 miles for you, my little darling. You see me standing still, I don't mind running with you. With you, with you, with you. I would gladly buy you a boat, carry your house across the ocean, underneath the stars. Take our time and tell our story that we've come to know. Well, I suggest we write our own tonight, tonight.
It was like stepping into the unknown, and that was one of the, probably one of the first significant leaps of faith that this band has had. And it was a testament to how much we really truly love this and do this, and it was fantastic.
We took that tour as kind of like a little starting point.
Right after that tour, that's when Jack departed from the band. We wanted to tour the West Coast, and he just kind of a natural thing where Daniel and I, we wanted to do more, and I always found the dynamic of the band at that time, it was Daniel and I were constantly pushing forward, wanting to do better, he and I pushing each other, and you know, Jack was very content. He was doing a good job, he was very content, he was really on board, everything all got along, but it was like we could tell we wanted to do more than he was probably comfortable with.
We eventually toured again, you know, on the West Coast, and had a great tour out there too. And
we ended up doing a tour where it was just Daniel and I out on the West Coast, and that was successful too. So after that, during that tour, it was like a nice transition in between our first album and what we were working on. That was the beginning of Calling You.